Good morning, Bimblers, and you join me on Newton High Street, just round the corner from my new gaff. I thought today we'd do Newton Willows 2. We'd have an explore down Crow Lane. The weather forecast says it might rain at some point, but luckily we only live round the corner, so if it does, we can nip in for a cup of tea. Anyway, let's stop messing about and let's bimble. The first interesting old building you reach on Crow Lane is the old United Reformed Church, built in 1840. I'm not sure who designed it, but Historic England aren't sure either, so I'm in good company. It is Grade 2 listed. I know who paid for it to be built. That would be a Josiah and a Joseph Evans, sons of Richard Evans. He owned a coal mine over in Haydock. He was actually buried here. His tombstone's just at the front of this old church, as well as Josiah's tombstone. I'm not sure whether I should be filming here today, Bimblers, because it's not a church anymore. It's posh flats. There is a graveyard just round the back, so I suppose I could say I was visiting family. This was the original church, but in 1878 they built another church just next door. Your classic style of church with a big spire and everything. But in the 1960s that developed dry rot and it was demolished. But luckily they had this one next door. They'd just been using this for Sunday school, so they all moved into there. That was up until the 1980s, 1982 to be exact, when this building was deemed to be unsafe. It was left to rot up until 2004, when it was bought by developers, changed into the flats. Just over the road from the old United Reformed Church, it's possibly the oldest postbox in Newton Willows, a Victorian one. You can tell a Victorian postbox by the fact they have VR on the front. That stands for Victoria Regina, Regina being Latin for Queen. That style of wall-mounted postbox was introduced in 1857, and I imagine that was installed shortly after that. But if that's the oldest postbox in Newton Willows, just round the corner you might find the newest postbox in the whole of the UK. Let's bimble.
This time, things to show me, but life just keeps turning back to the way.
There you go, Bimblers. A brand spanker. One of Big Charlie Boy's new post boxes. He's got his royal cipher on it. CR, that stands for Charles Rex. Rex meaning king in Latin, as in Tyrannosaurus Rex. The first postbox to be installed with King Charles's cipher on it was over in the Isle of Man, in Douglas. But the first one on the mainland was over in Cambridgeshire. But here in Newton Willows, we've got the newest one. Let's bimble.
This time, you would still see all that became attached from the way things were before. It just proves to me how it's meant to feel. We have motive, we have the time. We were meant to leave extra.
And so, Bimblers, we reach our second church here on Crow Lane. That would be St Mary's and St John's Church, a Catholic one. You see, when they built the Liverpool to Manchester Railway and the Sankey Canal just down the way, it brought a lot of industry to here in Newton and over to Earlstown. And with that came a lot of Irish immigrants looking for work building all the infrastructure. And those Irish immigrants needed somewhere to go to church, and mostly they were Catholic. So in 1861, Newton Willows appointed its first Catholic priest, a Father John Lennon. Imagine that. Some land was donated by Lord Newton, It used to be an old clay pit for a brickmaker's works. Historic England tells me that it was a G. Blount that designed this church. That would be Gilbert Robert Blount. He didn't always design churches. He started off as a civil engineer. He used to work for Isambard Kingdom Brunel. He was the superintendent of construction on the Thames Tunnel. That's the one that kept flooding. It nearly killed Gilbert in 1841. It nearly killed Isambard Kingdom Brunel in 1828. And it did kill 6 workmen on that occasion. It's just that Isambard Kingdom Brunel managed to get out. Gilbert Blount decided that civil engineering wasn't for him, and he wanted to design churches. So he became the apprentice of a fella called Anthony Salvin. You might remember me talking about him before. He's the fella that designed All Saints Church over in Runcorn. In 1849, Gilbert Blount went off on his own, and at that point, he made a very influential friend. That would be Cardinal Wiseman, the Archbishop of Westminster. And he got him loads of work building Catholic churches, including this one, St Mary and St John's, built in 1864. But there's another church just down the way, designed by someone much closer to home, and much closer to my heart. Let's bimble.
Time. We were meant to lead extraordinary lives.
This is All Saints Church here on Crow Lane. It was completed in 1914, and it was all built to take the strain off St Peter's Church on Newton High Street. People originally met at a big hall just off Crow Lane, and then they started meeting at the Gas Street School. Gas Street is now Baron Road. More about that in the future, Bimble. Sir William Collingwood, the managing director of the Vulcan Foundry, donated £1,000 to get the ball rolling to have a church built. And again, Lord Newton donated some land to the tune of £600. And so they built All Saints Church here on Crow Lane. It was all designed by a William Owen and his son Seeger. William Owen was born in Latchford in Warrington, just like me. He built some very famous Warrington landmarks, the Mulberry Tree pub in Stockton Heath, and the Albion over in Orford. Unless we forget the Parr Hall. I mean, who hasn't played there? There was actually supposed to be a big tower put on this church, but they didn't get enough donations. A problem that the local library didn't have. Let's bimble. There's one man in history who can be thanked above all others for building libraries. He started out his life in Dunfermline in Scotland. He emigrated over to America, and he eventually sold his steelworks for $303 million. That's about $11 billion in today's money. That man was called Andrew Carnegie, as in Carnegie Hall over in New York. Mr. Carnegie donated funds for 2,509 libraries all across the world, the UK, the USA, Canada, New Zealand, France, etc, etc. Not bad for a lad who started out his life in a one-bedroom croft in Scotland. Him and his family emigrated over to America, to Pennsylvania. That was back in 1848. His first job was as a bobbin boy in a cotton weaving plant. For that, he earned $1.20 a week. But he had big ideas. He eventually became the superintendent of the Western Division of the Pennsylvania Railroad, and he earned $29 a week. That's about $50,000 a year in today's money. That little bit of extra money meant that Andrew Carnegie could make some investments, and he did rather well. He got his mother to remortgage her house for $500, and he invested that. And eventually, he became the richest man in American history, beating J.D. Rockefeller. In 1909 he donated £4,000 to Newton Willows. It's about £400,000 in today's money. And he donated it so they could build this library. It was a little bit of a centre for education around here. They used to have a technical college next door. That was here between 1876 and 2015 when they knocked it down and built more posh flats. But the top of that building is still there at the end of the road. It's proudly displayed in something called the frying pan. You can see the top of the building and one of the top of the columns. It was designed by a chap called Henry Littler, who you might have heard of before. He designed Chorley Police Station and my old college in Leigh on Railway Road. He designed that as well. He also designed the police station on Newton High Street, more or less where we started today's Bimble. My sister went to that technical college. She said that the cheese toasties from the Old Crow Inn were second to none.